People always think betrayal begins with one big mistake, a single moment of weakness, a choice you could trace back to a glass of wine, or a late-night conversation. But the truth is, it's never that simple. It doesn't start with fire. It starts with silence. It starts with emptiness. And that's exactly how my story began. A story I never imagined I'd confess. A story of how I cheated 6 times, and how every single one of those choices ripped apart the life I thought I had built forever. When I married Michael, I believed in fairy tales. He was the man who made me laugh until my stomach hurt, who stayed up with me until sunrise talking about dreams and promises, who made me feel like we were two against the world. I wore the white dress, said the vows under candlelight, and truly thought love would be enough. Our home was cozy, filled with laughter, pictures on the walls, and a future that felt certain. On the outside, we looked perfect, but perfection has cracks no one else can see. It didn't collapse overnight. It was slow, so slow that you almost don't notice the warmth slipping out of the room until one day you realize you're sitting next to someone who feels like a stranger. Conversations that once stretched for hours turned into grocery lists and bills. Our kisses felt rehearsed. Our dinners silent. Michael hadn't stopped loving me, and I hadn't stopped loving him. Not entirely. But something essential was missing, something I couldn't name at first. And then there was Daniel. He wasn't supposed to matter. Just a man I met at a work event, standing there with an easy smile and a confidence that drew people in. Not my type, not on paper. But the way he looked at me, it wasn't the polite glance of a coworker. It was as if he saw through the mask I wore every day. Past the tidy hair, the practiced smile, the role of the perfect wife. He looked at me like he noticed the tired eyes, the loneliness I tried to ignore. For the first time in years, I felt awake. We didn't rush into anything. At first it was innocent. Conversations by the coffee machine, small talk after meetings, jokes that made the long afternoons easier. But slowly, the boundaries blurred. Daniel listened to me differently. When I spoke, he wasn't distracted by his phone, he wasn't half present. His attention was absolute, and that kind of focus is dangerous when you've been starving for it. Every time he laughed, every time his eyes lingered on mine just a second too long, I felt something pulling me toward him. I told myself it was harmless. I was married. This was just a friendship. A harmless spark to distract me from the monotony. But deep down, I knew I was lying to myself. Every coffee break, every stolen conversation made me crave more. The first time I cheated, it wasn't planned. One late evening, after a long day at work, Daniel and I found ourselves alone in the office. We'd been talking for hours about childhood memories, our fears, our secret dreams. The room was quiet, and then it happened. He brushed my hand. My heart skipped. I should have pulled back. I should have remembered the vows I made. But instead, I let it linger. I let the silence stretch until his lips found mine. And just like that, I crossed the line. I went home that night trembling with guilt. Michael was there, waiting for me, asking about my day like nothing had changed. And yet, everything had changed. I smiled. I kissed him goodnight. I curled up in his arms, pretending everything was the same. But inside, I was split in two. That kiss turned into more. Once you cross that boundary, the wall is gone. And with Daniel, it wasn't just physical, it was emotional. I told him things I couldn't tell my husband anymore. He knew my secrets, my insecurities, the parts of me Michael no longer reached. And that intimacy was addictive. But Daniel wasn't the only one. You see, when you break a vow once, it becomes easier to break it again. You start convincing yourself you're already a sinner, so what's one more? And before I knew it, I found myself repeating the same mistake.
6 times.
6 different men. Some were brief, a few nights when loneliness consumed me. Others were longer, more complicated, tangled with emotions I didn't know how to manage. But each one pulled me further away from Michael, from the woman I used to be. With every affair, I told myself it was filling something my marriage lacked. One man made me feel beautiful again. Another made me laugh like I hadn't laughed in years. One simply listened, really listened. I wasn't chasing love, not exactly. I was chasing pieces of myself, I thought I'd lost. But every time I came home, every time I kissed my husband goodnight, the guilt grew heavier, crushing me in silence. Michael noticed. Of course he did. He noticed the late nights, the distant stares, the way my phone seemed to be glued to me. But he never confronted me. Maybe he trusted me too much. Maybe he was afraid of the truth. Or maybe he was just as lost in our silence as I was. There's one night I'll never forget. We were sitting on the couch, the television playing in the background. Michael reached over, pulled me close, and kissed me. It should have been natural. It should have been comforting. But instead, it felt hollow. My body was there, but my heart wasn't. As he held me, all I could think about was Daniel's smile, or the way another man had once whispered my name. That's when I realized how far gone I was. The breaking point came when I finally confessed to Daniel what was happening inside me. We sat in a little cafe, the weight of months of stolen glances and hidden emotions pressing down on me. My hands shook as I told him, I don't know what this is, but I can't ignore it anymore. I'm married, and I don't want to hurt anyone, but I can't stop feeling this way. He looked at me with those calm eyes and said softly, I feel the same, but I don't want to be the reason your life falls apart. But my life was already unraveling. Every affair was another thread pulled loose, and soon the whole fabric of my marriage began to tear. The truth is, I destroyed everything. Not with one mistake, but with 6. 6 betrayals that left my husband broken when he finally learned the truth. His face when I confessed, it haunts me. The disbelief, the pain, the way his shoulders slumped as though I had taken every ounce of strength from him. And in that moment, I realized something I had been too blind to see. It wasn't about Daniel or the others. It wasn't even about Michael. It was about me. I was searching for answers outside of myself that I should have been brave enough to face within. I was chasing validation, escape, excitement, anything but the truth. Now I sit here telling you this story, not because I'm proud, but because secrets rot the soul. And maybe, just maybe, someone listening will recognize the silence in their own relationship and choose differently before they cross a line that can't be uncrossed. I cheated 6 times. And in the end, all it did was destroy the man I loved, the marriage I once cherished, and the woman I thought I was.